Cory, good to see you there, mate.
Oh, Michael, hey, how are you, man? How's
I'm
things?
good.
Sorry, I was just,
What are you reading there?
I'm just, keeping sharp, reading up on Google AdWords. You got to stay fresh in
AdWords.
this industry. Yeah.
Is
Yes.
that the new name for Google Ads now? Are they rebranding
Uh,
it?
Let me
to-
check a chapter one real quick. They might have changed it recently. No, I'm not sure. This was written in 2014, so I'm going to
Oh,
assume this is maybe an older version. I'm
interesting.
learning a lot though, Michael. This is pretty amazing, man. I
I
gotta
thought
say,
they were rebranding it. This was like this is the 2026 edition, and that's the secret unveiling that it's going to be called Google AdWords.
So, Michael, I wasn't really supposed to tell you, but honestly, all the secrets are in this version
Yes.
of Google AdWords for Dummies. Get your copy if it's still available. It might be a little dusty, ladies and gentlemen, but Google AdWords for Dummies 2014 is the way to go.
That
Stop
is the
looking for
way to
hacks on
go.
LinkedIn. This is the way to go. Yep.
Look, and beyond all our amazing jokes right now, is sometimes going back over those old texts or articles actually good to refresh your mind on things that are focused on the Google Ads philosophy of getting the damn result. Like
Mm,
focus on results. I remember there was a
yeah.
book I had, um, a guy, I got to remember what it is. I could quickly look it up. Talor Zamir Google Ads book. This guy I really like. The Ultimate Guide to Local Business Marketing, I think it was, but it was using Google Ads.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, I just felt that book was really good for that Google Ads philosophy. I think I got the book back in 2017, but at that time in 2017, there was a lot of fake news about Google Ads, and there's
Yeah.
more even fake news now. So sometimes those things are actually good to remember and
Yeah.
remind yourself of the fundamentals of advertising when you're getting too cooked in the newest hack or trend.
Well, I will say, Michael, as I was deeply researching this thing that is Google AdWords, it did remind me of something here, which is that at its core, Google AdWords has always been a direct response marketing channel first.
Yes.
And when you go back and you read these old classics like the 2014 Google AdWords for Dummies, let me tell you, it is very big on reminding you that this is a direct response marketing
Yeah.
channel. Whereas, as we've talked about at length in recent episodes, Google's trying to I don't want to say pull those sheets over your eyes, but they're essentially trying to say, hey, you know what? We're beyond that now.
Yeah.
You can do brand awareness. You can get in front of the right person a year before they're ready to purchase because we have so many amazing intent signals. But in reality, folks, you really want a real solid, consistent ROI. Keep thinking about Google Ads as a direct response channel. And then you can sprinkle on some brand awareness, some more outbound, high
Yeah.
touch, that kind of stuff. Totally fair. But there's probably other channels that are going to be a little bit more lucrative when you're going down that road. Michael.
Nice. I'm going to put a marker in here now, and I'm actually going to start a new conversation that we haven't
Let's
discussed.
go.
But this will be how to use old school Google AdWords mentality for success in
Okay.
the current age.
Okay, that's a good one. Let me just read up a little bit. Okay, Michael, please
Look,
continue. I'm going to cheat a little bit.
look, I think this is the good way to look about this is in trying to. I always think about things naturally in ways of frameworks. Like, what's a framework where you can take the stoic or ancient philosophical approaches of Google AdWords and bring it to this new age of advertising? And I think it's probably looking at it in, as people call, like the stages of the funnel: bottom of funnel, middle of funnel, and top of funnel. And I think with any campaign, with any client you're working with, you've got to be in, like, this is the difference between delivering value and perceived value. Sometimes you've got to do the perceived value and you're like, we're doing all this bells and whistles, which we don't do at MarketLead because that ain't my jam. But then when you're actually going for the actual value, it'd be focusing on bottom of funnel and then moving up the funnel back to the top. And the bottom of the funnel is when you can use the old school Google Ads tactics of high intent keywords, direct response advertising, direct response copy, really good like landing page that just gets to the point where you're just trying to drive people to click and convert or click and sell. And once you've done that bottom of funnel, then you can move up and start to do maybe more research based keywords and then move up into other campaigns, being it YouTube retargeting or YouTube brand awareness or prospecting. What are your thoughts there? Like, I've
Well,
kind of
here,
maybe even covered it all, or maybe not, because I don't know
that's
that much.
everything, Michael. There's nothing. No, no. What's funny is I think nowadays it's so tricky, right? Because we want to use exact match and phrase to have the control to say, hey, I want long tail keywords. I want to be very specific about the searches that we show ads for, right?
Mm,
The thing is, now we've got these close variant match types, right? So
yes.
this is like Google saying, I know you didn't turn broad match on, but well, let's just try it anyway and
Yeah.
see what happens. And so basically, Google's going to open it up. So if you're looking at doing, let's say, emergency HVAC services, right? Like that's the keyword you want to go after because that is a very profitable one and you're willing to bid a lot on it. But Google decides, hey, I know you put in an exact match, but let's just go after people searching for HVAC in
Yeah.
general or like DIY HVAC. And you're like, wait a second, this is not exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
Like back in the day of Google AdWords, where if you put that in exact match, that's going to be it. That's
That's
like
all you're
all you're going to
getting. You're
show
getting
for.
that one impression a
Yeah.
day.
So
Now you'd
that's
be
the
getting
tricky
more.
thing.
Yeah.
That's the tricky thing is we like to think about it and that we want to start bottom of funnel and then build up the funnel from there. But Google makes it a little bit messy, right? Because of these things like close variant matching and people that just don't know any better with match types
Yes.
and use the default recommendation, which is just start with broad match. We'll figure it out. Just
Yeah.
spend thousands of dollars and we'll learn. Instead, you have to really control this with negative keywords is probably going to be your number one tool for this for you beginning advertisers, right? Yeah, you're going to put in exact match, phrase match, whatever. You're going to go into it expecting that your search term reports are going to be full of things that are a little bit higher in the funnel than you're prepared to pay for. And that's okay. You just got to make sure to add those negative keywords as
Yeah.
you go. Michael, one thing that is really tricky, I find for some advertisers, especially newer ones, is they can't wrap their mind around like phrase match versus exact match negative keywords. So I think it plays a big part in the strategy we're talking about. How do you usually talk clients through this, or how do you guys think about it at MarketLead?
In terms of using negative keywords in
Yeah,
the term.
phrase match versus exact match negatives. Like, should we put it in that type of match type or exact match? How do you guys
Yeah.
think about
So this is just my approach. I've always done it this way.
it? Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's interesting. No one's ever asked me this before, and I've never thought about it before. But this is my process. Number one is I'll go through the search term report, especially if it's a new campaign daily, and I'll just do an exact negative on that keyword. That way I get that little cross symbol circle thing, just so I know mentally that it's been excluded. Because even though it may be a unique term, I want to know that it's been excluded just for my own well-being.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll do is I'll also have a text note next to me, like on my computer, and I'll just look for phrases or words in there that I know no matter what, 95, 100% of the time, it's just going to be irrelevant. DIY, PDF, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I will already have a standard negative keyword list in the account, but every business is different. So I'll exact the negative word, the phrase, and then I'll look for exact words, one word, and I'll just put into the list, like this text note file.
Mm-hmm.
Then if I notice that there are 2-word themes, I will put them in as phrase. That way, when I copy that list into the account or like the account level and then apply it to the campaigns, I've got the single words that will be always negative, and that will be on the broad. That will just be broad. And then I'll have the 2 words that will be as phrases. Make sense?
Yeah,
Was that what you do? Yeah.
that's
Anyway,
fair.
that's what I do. So once again,
Yeah.
I exact negative the term just to ensure that I can see that it's been like I've reviewed that keyword, and then I've got my actual approach that cleans it out quite aggressively.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. There's some real sexy advanced ways to do it through the API, so that you can essentially like keep a log of things that you've already added, which is
Yeah.
really nice. So that way you don't have to look at terms that you've already taken care of. So basically, if you were to do a lot of negative keywords in phrase match, it becomes tricky over time to know whether you've excluded something or not. So like, let's say you try to have a schedule every 7 days. I'm going to look at the account. I'm going to add. I look at the search term reports. I'm going to add negative keywords, but sometimes you're like, man, sometimes we did on Monday, but something happened. Now we have to do it on the Friday before. So our whole last 7 days kind of, it overlaps the last one. And you're like, did we add this? Did we not? One of the nice tricks, at least in the interface, that anybody can use is actually adding the negative keyword at the ad group level, right? It's not going to be ideal because you're only going to get, 10,000 or so at an ad group level.
Yeah.
That would be more than enough for most ad groups and most accounts. But what's nice
I think
about that
more
is when
than
you
enough.
go,
Yeah.
yeah, if you use the UI, you can see in the search term report that it's been excluded that way. It's just kind of like a convenient way to have that visual cue to like,
Yeah.
I don't have to look at that. And you can put a filter in the search term page that says essentially don't include if it's already been excluded. Whereas if you add it at the negative keyword list, I don't know if it's still like this because again, I do it like outside the interface myself, but it used to be that if you did it at the negative keyword level, it would still show up in the search term report. It wouldn't show as an excluded term because technically it's at the account level. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it's still like that. So correct
I
me if
think
I'm
it
wrong. But
still is. And that's once again why I do it. Now, Cory, the other thing is just for our listeners is there's two ways to segment when you do this. Number one, do it based on what gets clicks, like do it by impressions descending and then just look at it by clicks. So what's actually costing money. And then if you've got the time, look at it by things that have like 0 clicks, maybe 1 impression. Because even though there might be thousands of 0 clicks, 1 impression, but you'd be able to pick up a theme in there, or you could even just get that put into ChatGPT and just see like, hey, what are the themes of these keywords or what are the words that are showing up most often? And then you can just do a bit of a cleanup there. Because I found most of the gold in having a very successful account hasn't come out from putting negative keywords on things that have already been clicked, but it's things that haven't been clicked, but there's been an impression. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't get a click for that. So it's almost like you get like a bit of a preview of where your money could be wasted and you get to get rid of it beforehand. It's just like, it's almost like you're walking to a cliff, but it's a foggy night and your flashlight only goes a few feet ahead and you just get that little bit and you're like, okay, cool. Let's pull that back.
Yeah,
So
100%. You know, another one too is CPC. So just sort descending by CPC because you might be shocked at what you find. And like, wait a second, $42 for a click here. Yeah. So that's a good one to see kind of what's going on at the bidding level, what's actually happening in the auctions themselves. I just want to circle back really quick to the match types with negative keywords because I think really analytical people, this could be business owners that have been doing it since maybe like 2014 or something like that. They still call it AdWords. They get really like pedantic about every little negative keyword. Like they look at the search term report like multiple times a day, like on their phone, through the Google Ads app or whatever. Like they are so on top of it. And to be honest with you, it sounds great, but I think that micromanagement, which is what it is, I get saving money, especially if it's your business. There's probably other things I could argue that you should be spending your time on that would actually make you more money than the tiny $2 that you would ever spend on a click. But regardless, you have to be very careful with these negative keywords, especially if you're going to start using phrase match negative, or even worse, like the more than like 2 or more word broad match negative keywords, which I usually just recommend. It's probably too dangerous for most accounts. Just do phrase and exact if you can. But the problem is you start going a little bit crazy with adding all these phrase match negatives and you don't really realize what you're now missing out on. You know, you just assumed because you're just doing it constantly, that doesn't really seem like we want to show for that. Let's just add it as a phrase match negative. Thing is, guys, Google's not going to show you what you didn't show up for. That's just it. It's the wall has been set. You are now blocking stuff. And man, I have seen it before where adding a ton of negative keywords, like 10,000 or something, can really hurt an account because you had the right intention, but you didn't think through at a granular level how that was going to affect potential conversion opportunities later on. So that's a really big thing. I want to remind people of that.
And with that, like not being like what I said, but that's why you go through the list and you may put the one word in like DIY or PDF, things that you know are complete junk. So at least you're just like cutting out that. So rather than, because most of your wastage would be around a few terms or phrases. So if you just cut them out from the start, like most of the accounts we work on, whilst we do negative keyword cleanups every week, most of the time we're not doing negative keyword cleanups because we've done this really simple approach from the start just to really clean it up to ensure that the purity is there. So as you've said, it's like people micromanaging that. It's like, are you serious? Like you don't need to do it. If you do your job properly up front, it's like an investment. You invest up front and then you get all the results in the end or you get the investment return. There are other things you can do that are significantly better.
Yeah. Yes.
So Cory, shall we wrap this one up? Because this was a bit impromptu and we jump into our next segment.
Okay, so this one, let's do the auctions. Let's talk about
Yes.
competitor insights. This would be a pretty simple one, but I imagine this does come up from time to time. So, what's the best way? I'm pulling this. I'm stealing this, guys, from PPC Reddit. So, what is the best way of visualizing auction insights since it was removed from Data Studio, which is what it used to be called? It's the Looker Studio now.
Mm.
But Michael, how do you think about this? What's the best way to visualize auction insights? I just think you download the data and you visualize it through whatever tool that you want. But what do you think?
I don't visualize the data. I just literally look at the auction insight return and just look at it there. Like I just look at the numbers. Now, so I'm not taking this off tangent. I'm trying to pop the bubble here. But maybe it's just my mind. Like I prefer seeing spreadsheets and data rather than visualizations because I feel like a lot of visualizations, number one, are not visualized properly to actually show the message or the actual with clarity. When I have seen them in the past, I haven't found them to be beneficial. So I actually prefer to go into the account, look at it on either an account level, campaign level, ad group level, or even sometimes a keyword level to see the auction insights from there and just seeing usually what competitors, how we're ranking against competitors. So for this doesn't affect. People can't even see, but it literally says the post is competitor insights. What's the best way of visualizing auction insights, as you said?
Yeah. So I see a lot of benefit to visualizing auction insights in particular because I really want to see the trends over time. I want to see during certain times of the year whether those things go up or down, whether a certain competitor has popped up more recently versus in the past. I want to see or the opposite, which is interesting, is when you start seeing certain competitors in the same auctions as you start being less aggressive, right? Depending on the metric you're looking at. And that's going to be great because sometimes we can capitalize on that short-term or long-term trend by bidding more aggressively, maybe going after their brand if that's a part of our strategy. So I do think visualizing it does make some sense because it's just a quick way to tell the story that it's trending in a certain direction.
Okay.
And I think for a lot of stakeholders, when you're reporting on that type of data, some are big on competition, some could really care less. But just for stakeholder, they love seeing just those lines, right? Like, oh, okay, Amazon's really cranking up the bids lately, and we're fighting for impression share. I think it's just easier to tell that story in one image, as sometimes they have trouble with the table. So I get it. So, but that's how I think about it. Yeah, and as far as like how to do it, again, simple answer. I think it's just download it. If you're not comfortable using the Google Ads API, which I don't blame you, just go into the interface, go to the ad group that you want or the campaign that you want or whatever. Download the data. It's right there available for you. Choose a long date range. They actually made it a lot better than it used to be, Michael. I don't know if you remember, but in the past, at least that was my understanding, was you were limited to like a very small window of time that you could download the auction insights data. Now you could go back, I think like 90 days, 180 days, whatever. I think I went back the other day to like 365 or something like that, just to get a year's worth of data. And you could see right there, when you download it, it's got every single day. You can segment by day or week or whatever, and you can get that nice visual with you against everybody else. And shout out to Frederick Valle's company Optimizer. They have a free site. It's like a page on their site. It's the Auction Insights Visualizer tool, and you can download the CSV from Google Ads from the UI and just literally have that file, and you just drag it into the visualizer, and it boom creates all the charts for you. Wow. And there's filters and drop downs that you can choose. It just makes it really nice and easy for less tech savvy people to have a free tool, 100% free. It's always been free. I've used it for years. I have my own tools now, but it's still available, and it's great for just like quick visualizations when you're auditing an account or something like that. So that's another tool. Quick tip for you guys. Yep.
When you export that data, are you doing it on a daily, not exporting it daily, but are you segmenting it by daily, campaign, ad group, and keyword? Or how much data is it usually? What date are you using?
I think it's one of those foundational data analysis questions, and really it depends on what question I'm trying to answer or what it is that I'm trying to investigate. If it's a longer time period, I'm probably going to do monthly or weekly. Because if you're looking at last 14 days, you don't want to see weeks. You don't want to see months, obviously. So you're going to go daily. If you're looking at, 180 days, let's say half year of data. Probably weekly is fine. Monthly might skew things a little bit. If you're looking at a couple of years, maybe go by month. Again, it all depends on really how smooth you want to see the trends. Do you want to see at certain times a year that things are bumping up or going down? So I think it really depends on that. I don't think most need to segment by device. I think that's really overkill nowadays, especially with smart bidding. It's like, come on, who's really? I mean, most accounts don't need that level of granular analysis. I mean, if you have evidence that suggests that mobile versus desktop for certain ad groups or campaigns are really impactful, then hats off, go for it. Download by device, but for most accounts, probably not a concern. So don't worry about that segment.
And it doesn't even matter because most traffic is coming through mobile. So you can assume that 80% of the traffic or 70% of the traffic is mobile. Do the maths there. No, the reason I asked that, it's more of a data analytics question because I've noticed over time that it's better to have, and the problem is by saying this, so much data is needed and it can slow down the APIs you use. But it's better to be pulling data on a daily basis because it might be that the client asks you for, hey, can we get a report on the performance last year versus this year? And you're like, cool, I'll do yearly. And like, oh, actually, can we have a look at the month breakdown? And it's like, oh, actually, and can we just have a look at the last 30 days? And like every time you do that, then you're going to have to either reprompt the API with different inputs. And I've just realized over time, with one API call to do based on the days, you can pull the last 7, 14, 30, last month, every single month, last year. And I found, whilst it can export multiple times more data, like significantly more, it gives you more flexibility. So then you can actually dynamically just build out a dashboard faster for clients. That's what I find.
Yeah, so if we're talking like just general data analysis, yes, best practice wise, daily, because I want that granularity for maximum flexibility, right? So we call that resampling, right? So resampling to weekly, resampling to monthly, quarterly, whatever. When you have it daily, you can resample it to whatever you want. Just be careful about averaging averages. That's for my more advanced people out there. That happens. So like click-through rates, the average click-through rate, and then you try to resample it to weekly, and all of a sudden you're averaging the average. You got to be really careful about those things. But anyway, I thought you meant
those averages. Wouldn't you just be pulling in clicks, impressions, conversion value, and then the other things are manually formulated, CTR, conversion rate. The only one that you got to be super careful about, and this is why this is the only data that doesn't fall in, is an impression share. Like if someone's wanting to look for the impression share, it has to be done. If you want to look at it on a monthly basis, you got to pull a query for it on a monthly basis. You can't be set because once again, that's an average, and you can't. There's no formula to get to the impression share.
Exactly. Yep. Good point. Yeah, we don't have a hard metric for that, unfortunately. So that would be nice. I'd be interested to see how that would work itself out. But that's a good point. Yeah. So
impressions divided by market availability.
That's the thing. That's the other one is the one I want. I want to see what's the visibility factor? What kind of quantitative measure is that?
Because the impression share isn't an impression divided by market availability
potential. It's potential, I guess, like auction potential, right? So that would be a great metric, but I know they did probably for privacy reasons they can't,
because you can reverse engineer it. Like if impression share is like 70%, I'm just doing my maths right now, and you had 700 impressions.
You divided or whatever.
Markets would have been like 1,000 market potentials. Market potentials. I'm phrasing that now. That's the worst one to call.
Tag it. All right.
Going through, I don't know why we're going down that rabbit hole. This is just data, and this is just nerd talk.
Now it's nerd talk.
Now, the other thing, I'm just actually going to ask this. So I do it based on date and breakdown. When you're pulling the data just for a generic reporting, not generic reporting, but the type of reporting, will you still pull it down by campaign, ad group, keyword? Because the way I pull the data, it's usually date, account, obviously, campaign, and then campaign type, and then pulling metrics from there. When you pull in the dimensions, not metrics, what dimensions would you be pulling in on, like for a typical report that you build?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, it all depends on what you want different reports for different things. You can't pull a single report for every layer of the account. It just doesn't work that way. Like,
Yeah,
especially through the API, there's going to be some metrics that are available at some levels of the account and not others, and some segmentations that are available at some levels that are not available at others. So you need to, if you're really serious about it, you have to build your own sort of data warehouse, and you have
yeah,
keywords in one area, search terms in another.
yeah,
Sometimes just for speed of reporting or querying, you want to have just campaigns as a separate thing and intentionally not have ad groups or keywords in there. So,
that's what we
honestly,
do.
yeah, I
Just
mean, at
because
an
there's too
agency
much data to
level,
be coming through, man. Like there'd be
yeah,
millions and millions of rows instead of just
yeah.
having like 50,000 rows of data.
Yeah, I think for most, like, let's just like back to basics. I think for most, they're going to be looking at the campaigns a lot. You could probably rely on the UI for keyword and search term, especially
Yeah,
search terms, because man, talk about a lot of rows of data,
yeah, man.
especially if you're only comfortable with like Google Sheets or something. Yeah, you should probably
Yeah.
be leaning on the UI as much as you can because it's going to slow down your computer. It's gonna be a big file, a lot of
And
search
the
terms.
APIs
So
actually do break as well, especially if you're splitting it out by day.
yeah, there's going to be things like query limits and stuff like that,
Yeah,
depending on your access level. But yeah, that's a lot more advanced technical topic. Is going to bore everybody, but yeah, I think for most, just you're probably going to be, if you're going to be downloading data and tracking over time, probably most often the account level campaigns specifically. Maybe ad groups if you have a lot of ad groups going on, but even for the most basic advertiser thing, just keeping the campaign data downloaded and the auction insights too. Because one of the things I always think about is if we didn't have access to certain date ranges and now we do, is that going to go away again in the future? And like kind of
mm,
being a little bit paranoid about it and just keeping that data somewhere so that I can refer to it later. This is true also of like quality scores over time, right? So there is a technical like metric like historical quality score, but it's not going to actually show you what the quality score was before. The only way you can track this is to have your own internal storage for quality scores by certain keywords. It's the only way you're going to track, because Google doesn't allow you to go and say, what was the quality score for this keyword last year?
yeah,
It's just going to be the most up-to-date quality score. So you got to have things in automated to pull the quality scores and track those changes over time. Honestly, I've found some huge potential opportunities and problems with accounts just by being able to track those things over time, because nothing else was making any sense. And then we looked at the quality score tracking reports and trends, and we see that certain keywords that were really high volume had dropped a lot in quality score because of some of the changes we made to the site. So it's just
interesting.
like, so you got to build your own internal storages, but that's a whole nother topic around data warehousing and just making sure that
Yeah.
you're not always waiting for Google to give you stuff. You gotta
Mm.
you gotta have your own internal storage for these things too. So, yep.
And just on a quickly to ask that, how often would it be calling the API calling into Google Ads to warehouse that once a day, like daily, weekly, monthly?
It's a cost question, really. I mean, I think for most, a weekly is probably fine. Maybe even some monthly. That probably default to more of like a weekly. If you got storage space, you're fine with paying the
Yeah.
big query costs or whatever you like to use. Go ahead and do it daily, because then if something majorly drops off from day one to day two because of a site change or something, you're going to see that
Yeah.
drop, and you're not going to wonder like, well, it's this week versus this week.
Mm.
That changed. I mean, but again, most companies are not going to need that type of anomaly detection where it's like literally the day after it happens, you need to jump on that. I mean, it's probably, we're talking quality score drops of like 8 to 6 or something, where
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's a problem, but is it like an overnight chaos? Probably
Yeah.
not. You could probably do that weekly, but again, getting kind of in the weeds there. Yep.
Nice. Well, this was an interesting segment on uh, visualization of competitor auction insights. So
Yes.
there we
Yes.
go. That's us ranting. Now, I'm going to mark this and we're going to our next section, which is offline conversion or offline conversion tracking for lead generation. Once you've done it, strategies or ideas about how to migrate or move over to
Just check the book.
optimizing towards the actual conversion value rather than just staying on your target CPA or your current cost per lead model.
Michael, I might not be able to. There's nothing in the book about offline
If the book
conversion
doesn't have it,
tracking.
it doesn't exist.
Shit. Oh man, I'm screwed. All right, well, I'm gonna lean on you for this topic then, because if it's not in my AdWords book, I don't know what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna need you on this one.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it.
So context of this, we've just had a big client of ours finally, after 2 years of working with us, get their offline sales data integrated into their Google Ads account. Their lead generation, they get probably around, how many? Probably around 3,500 leads a month.
Okay.
And the cost per lead is usually between $10 to $15, but actually like a multi-step form for a service. They haven't had any visibility on a campaign, ad group, or keyword level of revenue. I was doing all this off like these spreadsheets and stuff for them, but it capped out because it hit like millions of rows and literally like it broke. Literally didn't load. So I'm like, spoke to the developer, hey, can you just feed the data in? Funnily enough, they were able to do it in a week, even though I've been asking for 2 years. So
Wow, look at that.
the data's coming into the account. We're getting, I think about 80 sales so far from about 380 leads from like the last few days. I'm just trying to think of the maths because I know that the cost per lead was averaging around $17 for the last week, but the cost per sale is $89. So, and there's like probably around 100 sales confirmed in there now. So my question, or I'm putting it out there, is because I haven't done this in a while for like I've done offline conversion tracking multiple times, but at a new stage with a high volume, it's the transition, because this client has been very, very, very sensitive to cost per lead. And then now that we've got the cost per sale in there, it's about the transition plan of, number one, do we actually change the campaigns over to a target return on ad spend or a cost per sale? Thumbs up. Number two is the plan, is it done on the whole account or is it just done on a few campaigns? And then number three, over what time period do we start? As in, do we let the campaigns build up a few hundred sales and then we transition over, or do we do it immediately? And then number four is, how long do we let it run for to ensure that it's actually running well? So I know there are a few points there that we may forget.
Let's start with one.
Yeah.
That's the first one.
When do you think, once this data started pushing into the account, would be an appropriate time to start using that as a bidding model on Google Ads for lead generation? How many days or weeks?
If you get that volume, probably 7 to 14 days.
Cool. I was thinking
a couple weeks, probably. Yeah.
And I was just doing that just based on the fact of just making sure that, well, number one, the integration doesn't break randomly. And then number two, like there is a consistency of sales over that period to know that it wasn't just a spike and then it goes down, because once again, there's a sensitivity of these algorithms to, if it does start spiking and things are like a lot of outliers, you're literally cooking the account. And then ultimately the business, because this business is heavily reliant on Google Ads because their SEO has just tanked over the last few years. Number two is, how long would you be running it as a smart bidding for target return on ad spend to know if it's working well?
Forever. It will go up and down.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to work well, sometimes not. Auction activity. This is a dynamic auction system. So things are going to change, market conditions are going to change, but the terrible, boring, simple answer that is not nuanced, so it is therefore not probably the most accurate, but it's the best that we could really give you, is I would probably say, I don't know, Michael, what's your default on that?
I'm getting about 4 to 6 weeks intuitively.
Yeah.
I'd say give it 2 weeks for the data to be pushing into the account, just in like it's in its own custom column. I can measure it all. Yeah. The custom columns I've created are the value divided by cost, the return on ad spend, the cost per sale, and the what was the other one I created? Profit per sale, or like the difference between the sale. I think there was another one. And yeah, I think about 2 weeks to let the data be flowing in, especially the volume. And the important thing is the volume that's coming in. There's quite a high volume, so I'm confident about that. Then about 4 to 6 weeks to let it run without me making any major changes as the bidding model. Yeah. What are your thoughts on like
one thing
for once the data's actually in the account? Because people are like, yeah, just set up offline conversion data. It's like, yeah, no shit, man. Like, wow, what an original idea. But once it's actually in the account and you need that transition plan, what are we're just workshopping ideas right now.
Yeah, well, this is part of the fun part. Right? You've probably been using cost per acquisition bidding, target CPA for a while because you've had to because you didn't have value based conversions. So, as a lead generation based business, this could be pretty exciting because at the micro conversion level, if you're tracking those like secondary conversions or at primary conversions, so the actual lead coming through, or hopefully if you're doing offline conversions, it's actual sales occurring, right? Things
Yeah.
are actually happening. They've signed up, whatever your funnel is, and you've seen multiple stages of that. So hopefully you're using all those. Like you're using an MQL, you're using an SQL, you're using like the final,
Yeah.
sale, whatever. And now you can start assigning those values. And hopefully part of your offline conversion tracking has been you've been sophisticated. And we're not going to get into it in this episode because that is way too advanced for most. But like, how do you assign a value? You want to hopefully get to a point where you're assigning actual revenue value or profit value to each of those steps in the funnel. And then
Yeah.
that way, like I said, that's the fun part. You can start utilizing target return ad spend or maximize conversion value without a TROAS to essentially tell Google what's more valuable, this thing or this thing. And then it can start finding intent signals, search terms, whatever, or people that are most likely to get you those high value things. And it's hopefully going to increase the quality of the leads that are coming through, and it's going to get you more people that actually sign up and buy something as opposed to just being looky loos and they're not really interested, they're just sort of like browsing,
Yeah.
but it's not a good fit for some reason, which is going to happen regardless. I mean, smart bidding is not perfect, but I mean, as far as like testing it out, right, that's without getting too tactical. I mean, obviously that's going to be number one is start assigning the values, and then structure. You might need to start restructuring your account. Every account is different, right? Around campaigns, ad groups, whatever, so that you can control that target return ad spend at that specific segment level, right? So some audiences or some campaigns or some keywords are going to lead to high value whatever conversions, whatever that means for your funnel, than others, and you want to be able to control the target return ad spend levels accordingly. And because of that, you might need to restructure your account or your ad groups,
Yeah.
or campaigns, or whatever. So that's my first
Awesome.
thoughts.
Yeah. With assigning values for this account, it actually is the dynamic value based from the actual value in the back end coming in. And I
Good.
think it's important for people, if you're going to do this, try to do that rather than assigning values, actually give it the real value, not an average value, the real value, because what you're wanting to do is to load the machine up with like the actual data.
Mhm.
I was thinking this morning during my meditation, I was like, is this actually going to make the account perform worse because Google actually has the revenue data? And then my conspiracy brain starts thinking like, oh, they're going to start like etching away because they can see the actual profitability, the
Yeah.
difference between the spend and the revenue generation.
Mhm.
And those are just what I think about. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing just to think about. I'd be really curious if anyone in the universe, being like in the Google world, if like actually knew that if once they put their actual revenue data in, did it actually make the account perform better, or did it actually start performing worse in terms of actual business profitability at the end? Like
Yeah.
by giving Google more, whilst they claim that they're optimizing towards it, did they actually use it to arbitrage to go, well, look, they're making this much, let's just make an extra 10% here. I'd be
Mhm.
really curious if anyone actually knew that,
Yeah.
because I think that's a thing that either people don't think about, or when they do think about it, it's just like a fleeting thought rather than going, is this actually a viable option to feed the data in, or is it better to have a third party tool that Google feeds their data in, your offline feeds in there, so then there's no way for Google to have that visibility where they can actually try to make a financial arbitrage on you.
Yeah. But then the smart bidding can't operate, right? Because then it doesn't have those values itself to go after. So that's the downside
Yeah,
there.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
then
so I
But
was
is
just gonna say,
smart bidding smart, my friends? Is it
yeah.
smart? Because
Sometimes
it
it's
might be
dumb
dumb
bidding.
because you're actually going, it's like when, it's almost like when someone comes into like to buy something, if you're a salesperson, if you know they've only got $100 and you know they've only got $100, you're gonna be like, okay, how do I make this worse? Versus if you know someone's got like $10,000 in their pocket, you're going to do different things. You'll be like, oh, I might upsell them this, or like maybe I'll just kind of like not give them a discount because I know they can afford it. The whole like, they can
Yeah.
afford it. Like if they
Right.
don't do it, they're not going to leave. So
Yeah.
I know it's going in that direction, but yeah, just something else to thinking about as well. Like just got to keep thinking about these things because
Yeah.
Google Ads is an investment, that you're putting money in to get a higher return. If you started investing in something and they're going to charge you more to get the same return, you've got to really, this isn't some like YOLO, we're just throwing up some ads. This is investment, not advertising.
Yeah.
Really important.
Yeah,
And as my
absolutely.
investor mind thinks, it's like, where do people try to take a clip along the way? You know, when you buy shares, there's foreign exchange fees, like platform fees, and all these things. And before you know it, you're off like 5 to 10% of your capital gains, and you're like, did you actually lost a lot of money there? Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm ranting.
No, you're good. I mean, that's part of the pod is just ranting and raving, so all of
Yeah.
our nerdy followers can appreciate it. I was just going to add real quick because we gotta actually wrap this up. I can't believe it.
Okay,
We're at the end of
damn.
the hour, but real quick, folks. I want to say when you are going to make this transition, sometimes you need to get developers involved. You need to get someone in that runs the CRM for the company or Salesforce, whatever it is that you're using. Sometimes I think it's important, especially as an agency or someone that's going to be working with those people, to make it really clear that this offline conversion value import and assigning conversion values, etc. To be honest, the whole idea is to make smart bidding smart, but even with all the right numbers and all the connections, it might not work better than what's been working with max conversions with a target CPA or just max conversions uncapped. It is possible. So
Yeah.
I want to make that clear because sometimes it's a lot of investment and it's a lot of work. And then that sort of sets this expectation that it's going to work so much dramatically better because now we can use target return ad spend like those e-commerce companies. But honestly, guys, sometimes that just isn't the case. So make sure you're setting realistic expectations for yourself or for the stakeholders that you report to. If you're managing an account, it's not a guarantee that just because you're assigning values that it's going to all of a sudden work better. The idea is mostly that you can connect a good quality conversion that Google couldn't see before back to the ad account to make the smart bidding smart. But when we're talking about specifically assigning values, and maybe there's a lot of calculations that need to be involved with that, don't expect that is going to overnight change the account. Sometimes maximize target cost per acquisition is just going to work better, and that's okay. We're here to do what's going to work best. We're not here to just chase dreams, like pipeline dreams that just aren't reality. So obviously give it a fair test, give it several weeks, several months, depending on your account and the volume that's going through it. But be realistic. Sometimes it's not going to work better, and that's okay. That's part of testing and figuring out what is going to work. So.
And lastly, sales cycle. This can only really work well if the click and the lead and the purchase were in like a 90-day window. If your sales cycle's longer than that, like someone clicked today, submitted a lead today, and then in 105 days they bought, that data's not going to push in. The Google Ads like documentation says it's like it uses the Google Click ID. Still, is it still the Google Click ID, or is there other contributing factors?
Google Click ID is the big one.
Google Click ID. So number one, you need to make sure your Google Click ID is pushing through. Like this is all the technical stuff, but we're talking about strategy. But when it comes to strategy, you got to think, is the buying cycle over 90 days? Because if it is, or a certain percentage is over that 90 days and that doesn't push in, then you might be culling things that are actually getting you high value sales, but take longer. And sometimes it could have been like the more enterprise deal, the bigger deal that needed funding, or it could be that you're working with a big, like, for example, if you're offering a service and then it goes to a big company and their budgets are set for that department till the next financial year, but like everything's locked in, you can't attribute that sale back. And then you're turning off things that are actually working to get you sales. So it's important that you have this data in your account, but also maybe have an offline data attribution system that you can actually do attribution based on all sales based on the lead, because Google is not going to be your only source because there's a 90-day limitation window. And what's crazy, guys, is not all business happens in 90 days. Ooh.
Wait a minute. I don't think that's what my book said.
Yes. AdWords.
All right, Michael.
Okay, mate. Well, this is good. Thank you, everyone, for watching the PPC Unfiltered podcast with Cory Lindholm, Michael Nadalin. I'll exit this by saying adsbycory.com, Cory Lindholm on LinkedIn, and Cory Lindholm on X, formerly known as Twitter. Michael Nadalin, MarketLead.com.au, MarketLead on YouTube, and Michael Nadalin on LinkedIn. Did I already say that?
Very nice.
Anyway,
Yeah, you might have. That's okay.
Hope you all had a great session with us, and we'll chat to you soon. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.
Yes. Yes.
See ya.
Thank you, guys.